Hey everybody, Brendan here. Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be playing the London system against the modern defense, interestingly enough. We are just going to play kind of like a normal setup here. I'm going to play an early c3. It's not really too challenging, but the idea of it is their bishop is on the long diagonal. We will blunt the long diagonal as much as we can with our pawns. And of course, we're still going for the triangle setup, so it's kind of doubly beneficial. We're okay with the queen trade as well. I don't see anything wrong with that if they want to allow one. Just keep developing. Remember, development is important, believe it or not. So I think we will take it. We could also take on b6. Or go back. Let's take it. Let's take it. I have an idea with taking it. After bishop g3, we're threatening to take on b6, as well as play moves like knight c4. So what happens if we take on b6 now? Because I don't think they're well equipped to deal with this move. And that's because of knight c4. So do they play f6 here? That'd be a very ugly move to make. But it may be necessary. And why is that? Because here, okay, they just give up this pawn on e5. This is very good for us. So e4, we could play knight d6 check and actually just win the pawn. Here we just win the pawn outright with knight takes e5. And I'll play bishop takes e5. Of course, if we can trade off that bishop. It's becoming a little bit stronger, so now I'm pretty happy about that as well. Lots of things to be happy about these days, you know. Stocks are up. No, I'm just kidding. That's awful. Okay. Bishop to e2, knight to f3. We're just going to bring our pieces back just a little bit. Actually, I also like this move, bishop to c4. I might play it. Because I'm a fish on the seafloor. I don't know why. But I am. And yeah, with bishop to c4, it's just taking over this diagonal, which could be annoying. I doubt it will be, but you never know. And this is exactly what I mean. So I could play bishop c4 here, knight d5, and then I just move away. Doesn't look so bad. And if they, of course, take on e5, I feel like that's just such a bad move. We just take on c4. Yeah, lots of things to be happy about in this life. A little bit of a tactical shot there, I guess you could say. But one we're pretty happy to make. So knight d2. I'm looking to castle long here, actually. Because it gets my king out of the center, but still like kind of in the center. And also it gets our king, or it gets our rook in the game as well. So, yeah, I do like this move long castles quite a bit. Now we have to ask ourselves, what is our opponent's plan? What is our plan? With c5, I think our plan should just be knight b3. And we're either going to be taking this knight or taking this pawn. They cannot defend against both. Very good for us. I think we're off to a great start. b4 is something they'd love to play, but we just take on d5. They take, we take, rook takes, and then just king b2 and rook a1. We can easily neutralize any pressure if they try to like double up and try to create an attack. It's just not going to work. And here, if they try what they're doing now, we can take on d5, take on b5. Another pawn is going to fall as well. So we're up 2 pawns, about to be a third. Will neutralize any pressure they'll have on the d-file. That's very important, actually, I think. Just not letting them double. No reason to allow any sort of counterplay. We'll take on b7, and then on b3. And go back to b7. They can take on e3, but we just trade back. Our king is completely safe. Now it's time to start pushing our best friends. And that's the game. This is why the London system is like the best opening in the world. My mother, she told me if I didn't play the London system at a young age, that she would disown me, right? And that led me to having a drinking problem for many years. Just kidding. My mom's never played chess in her life. So, anyways, let's get back into it and actually analyze the game a little bit. So, I think there are things that our opponent could have done just a little bit better and made their mom proud of them. So, here, G6 is a totally fine opening. Honestly, openings are a little overrated and underrated at the same time. The reason I say that is because people put a lot of time into their openings, like studying very specific things that might not matter as much as general principles. I do think you should know like some of the main lines of whatever opening you're playing, of course, and make sure that you're not being surprised by just a normal move. But also, there comes a point where that's not really necessary, and that's why I say they're a little overrated. But they're underrated in terms of like, hey, if you can choose something that fits your style and fits your needs, then that's also a very good thing. Yeah, so maybe I'll make some videos on other openings and maybe like do like a little lesson on them if you guys are interested in that. Let's get into it though. So c3 is just one of those moves to blunt the bishop. It's nothing crazy. We're London players. We're not trying to go for major advantages. We're just trying to get the structures that we know and that we're confident we can play well, despite it maybe not yielding an advantage even out of the opening. Because, hey, if you don't yield an advantage out of the opening, it doesn't matter, right? There's other moves to be played outside of the first 10 or 15. So queen b6, I thought queen b3 was fine. I think also avoiding the trading of queens is good too. It depends on your style, right? If you're a London player, you can actually still be very aggressive. There's been lots of games I've played, even in these runs alone, where I've played something very, very aggressive. And it's worked out extremely well as a London player in these types of structures. And there's also times where I've taken things completely positionally, and that's gone equally as well. Yeah, so queen b3 is just kind of my style. I'm used to seeing these types of positions from the black side, so I know kind of what to worry about from either one. So knight d7, knight gf3, normal development. And this move e5, it strikes me as early. The immediate thing I think about is there something like tactically potentially wrong with this? It doesn't look like there is immediately, but it did definitely have me thinking here. And after bishop to g3, this move knight c4, like the combination of moves did look really, really scary for my opponent. And so I thought this was a nice try, just taking on b6 and then going knight c4. Turns out it's not as much. I did mention f6, and I think the reason why f6 is actually just good for black here is because after knight d6 check, king f8, knight takes c8, and rook takes c8, which is what I was expecting. I did see that there was knight f5. I didn't think it was such a big deal. I thought we were getting a couple tempos here with rook d1, for example. But I think just like the fact that knight f5, even though I could pick up the bishop, I don't even think they want to. I think they might just have a strategically better position, just because this bishop is worse than any of black's pieces, including this bishop, actually. This bishop can be good. And there's a famous Kasparov game in these types of King's Indian structures where that's the case. I think it goes over all the way to a5, and it's some crazy game. It's one of my favorite games of that year. I should continue that series. I haven't been. I'm a naughty person. Okay. Going back. So castle's letting us win the pawn. And yeah, winning this pawn is just too big of a deal. It's kind of a deal breaker, if anything. And will just give us a winning position in this ending. So, of course, a3 is good. I could have played bishop to c4 as well, but I wanted to play a3 eventually anyways, because I want to castle long. And yeah, f6 kind of helps me play bishop c4, which is the most accurate move, which I'm very happy about. The idea is probably they should play knight to d3. I'll just move my knight back to either d3 or f3. And I'm ready to castle and also potentially play e4. And these pieces are coming off, so their best piece is coming off. I think their bishop on e6 is quite decent, even if you look at the pawn structure. Because you might actually consider, you may consider that this bishop is not amazing because it's there's a lot of light square pawns that are like on the board. But the thing is, they're not really central pawns, right? They're not kind of locked into place. Like if there's a pawn on d5 and e4, this bishop would be worse than my grades in high school, right? But it's not, right? There's still movement within the center, so there's still mobility, and mobility is everything. It doesn't matter about pawns on the side of the board, whether or not they're on light or dark squares. That could matter for endings, but it's like, this is an ending, but it's not as much of an ending where, like, you know, we're just gonna bring our king to like e4. This feels a little weird, right? Feels like we should still like kind of keep our king a bit cagey for the moment. So yeah, I think that's the main lesson here, is that we won a pawn and Braden's mother does not play chess. It's hard to see what else to take away from this, because this is a pretty grave mistake. They could have ended up in a pretty decent position with just moves like f6, which is totally fine. But, you know, it's still a game nonetheless. I think, if anything, I need to learn from this and maybe play queen to a3 is actually really interesting. This is a cool move. And the idea here is just trying to prevent black from castling. If you castle, we get a free knight. Yeah, now you have to kind of solve some things. I guess knight f5. Does bishop f8 ever come? Let's just see. Bishop to e2. I think bishop f8 could be decent here. And the reason why is because queen to b3. And then like bishop to like e7 or something. It's a little strange. Oh, this is hanging. So maybe we take here. And then bishop e7. And the idea here is you're ready to castle. There's no more queen to a3. And black actually does seem to be fine there. But yeah, that's going to be it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed winning a pawn and the conversion of such things. Alright, that's going to be it. I love you. Mwah.